Hello, hello, and welcome to the American Library in Paris. We're so delighted to have you all here. I'm Alice McCrum, the program's manager. I'm equally delighted to be hosting this evening Elaine Sciolino in conversation with Philippine Leroy-Beaulieu to discuss how to play the Parisienne, and of course, Emily in Paris, the reason you're all here. Can you raise your hand if you're new to the library this evening? For whom is this their first time? Hello? Welcome, welcome. We are the largest English language lending library on the European continent and the host of over 300 cultural programs for readers and thinkers of all ages. This year, we will celebrate our 102nd birthday. We're very old for an American institution. I know that you're not impressed by this if you're French, but if you're American, this is a very big deal. So we're very pleased to see familiar faces and to meet new faces this evening. And so by way of introduction, rather than doing the kind of traditional bios, I was Elaine's research assistant. And one of my first, we have a couple of Elaine's research assistants in the building. One of my first tasks was to research and report on the phenomenon of Emily in Paris right when it was beginning. And so I had to watch it 7 times, the first season. And I think I still have whole passages of season 1 memorized. I've kind of taken a break from season 2 because it's so in my head. And I wanted to read a quote that I think kind of epitomizes Sylvie's fantastic character. And then I hand over to you, Elaine. So this is when Emily asks Sylvie why she doesn't want to get to know her early on in season 1. And Sylvie replies, and this might resonate with some Americans in the room. You come to Paris, you walk into my office. I mean, Filipinos are much better at this than I am. You don't even bother to learn the language. You don't even bother to learn the language. You treat the city like it's an amusement park. And after a year of your food, sex, wine, and maybe some culture, maybe some reading at the American Library, you'll go back to where you come from. Can you give a big round of applause, please, for Elaine and Philippine this evening? Thank you so much for being here.
Well, hello, everyone. Thank you so much, Alice, for, it's a little bit of nepotism here, but that's okay. This is fabulous for the American Library because usually the American Library deals with boring authors. No, not boring authors, wonderfully exciting authors. And we've broadened the definition of what the American Library is to the place in Paris for cultural understanding between the United States and France. So this is one of the first times, it's certainly the first time I've been hosting an event with a famous actress, and it's an honor. So tonight we're putting COVID aside, we're putting Putin and Ukraine aside. We're also going to put our cell phones aside. So any of you who want to do like the click stuff or the Instagram or the video, get it out of your system for the first 3 minutes, because after that, we're going to just have a blast and enjoy the moment. Okay. Allow me to read what I wrote in a profile of Philippine for the New York Times after Emily in Paris came out after season 1. This is on the character of Sylvie Grateau. She overdresses, smokes, mocks political correctness, and oozes meanness. She is the extreme version of the Parisienne, disseminating style and scorn in equal measure. And though Philippine Leroy-Beaulieu inhabits the role so completely that it has made her into a star in the United States and globally at 57, excuse me, that's a very American thing to announce someone's age, she has some very definite feelings about the myth of what she calls the French bitch. Audrey said I could use that word, Audrey, the director of the library. What is fact, what is fiction, and what is worth considering? It's a useful reminder that while stereotypes are easy to sell, the more complicated reality is often better. So, what is the complicated reality, Philippine, that we need to know about you?
Oh my God, what an opening. Well, first I want to say I was so honored to first to be invited here. She did make a list of all the people that were invited here before me, and they all have big brains. So I figured, she said, we need some entertainment. So I thought, okay, my brain is smaller. That's great. I was also so honored last year to have, my portrait done by Elaine. It was in the New York Times. I have to say, I was like shockingly honored. Thank you so much. That was, and see how she writes.
And we got a good meal out of it too.
And we got a beautiful meal and a good promenade on Saint-Sulpice. Yes. So, well, thank you for having me, first of all. And what is more? Well, I'm not. Sylvie is obviously a small part of me. I would have never accepted the part if I didn't recognize her. But I'm much more than that. No, I mean, I'm also totally different. But it was an incredible moment because what happened is that this part was written for somebody that was much younger than me, that my friend and talented casting director, Juliette Ménager, who's really sitting right here, who did the casting of Emily in Paris, told me, you should just read the sides and see if if you see something, smell something that you can relate to. And yeah, I read the sides to do a reading to be accepted by Darren Star, and I called her and I said, I recognize her, I know her. I said, oh, let's just try this. I don't know. Obviously, she's 15 years or 20 years younger than you on paper, but who cares? And we tried, and it worked. After a month and a half, I got a call back. So I was like overwhelmed. But yeah, it had to do with I'm not going to keep on talking. Just no.
We're here to we're here to hear you. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. So that was it, and then there's so much stuff that I had to channel to play her, because
Tell us about how you. I mean, here, Juliette also. This is really incestuous. Who happens to be my neighbor in the same building? Says to you, you know what? You're too old for the role, but
Yeah.
try it out anyway.
Yeah.
And you tried it out, and it took several weeks before they said,
Oh, it took like a month and a half.
Yeah.
I thought, I'd forgotten about it. I thought
right,
it was
exactly. So you get the role, and suddenly you have to decide, how am I going to play this role? And so what did you bring to the role?
No, yeah, I had to channel something that was what I saw when I was a teenager. My mother worked in fashion, and so I've seen her, and I've seen her friends, and I've seen all these, that whole world of fashion, all these women that had this arrogance, but that was hiding this vulnerability that was so strong. And that really touched me as a kid. I could see that they were all like, they had a lot of panache because they were actually very insecure. And because that's what you do see that when you're young. When you're an adult, then you forget about these things. But when you're young, you see the vulnerability, you see the fear, basically. So yeah, so I remember that came back to me. It came back to me. And when I was, playing Sylvie, having this young woman come to the office and having all these projects and talents and stuff that, could steal my power. That was really interesting, because I remembered as a kid seeing all these more mature women looking at younger women, and with a lot of jealousy, with a lot of fear, and it was super interesting to play that, to get it out, because it's also part of who I am as an actress, my age, and looking at younger actresses coming in and, playing, having all the roles, and I don't have them. It's also me, so that was really interesting. And beautiful, actually, because when you get it out of your system, then there's only other stuff left.
Well, what's so cool is in season 1, you really are pretty nasty
I'm a
to
bitch.
Emily, and I related to it because look, I'm not Emily, but I did come a million years ago when I was in my 20s to Paris from Chicago with the wrong wardrobe, and I did speak some French, but I didn't know any of the codes, and I had nobody to help me, so I kind of felt sorry for her a little bit. Alice stole my quote from you for season 1, so I'm going to go to season 2 because I think this is a key for your transformation into this new character, a much more complex character in season 2, where you actually cut her some slack, and you even, you may not like her, but you embrace her for her talents and skills. So Emily in season 2 is conflicted about Gabrielle, the chef, who she's secretly fallen in love with. And you say, you've got the rest of your life to be as dull as you wish, but while you're here, fall in love, make mistakes, leave a disastrous trail in your wake. If you've got to do Paris for 1 year, for God's sake, do it right. So tell us a little bit about the evolution of your role from this kind of two-dimensional character to this wonderful character who takes a boyfriend who's much younger and just has a blast herself as she
Well, that was Darren Starr's surprise for me. The whole thing, actually, but and that was very clever. I was really wondering what he was cooking for me for season 2, because you never know. But I was really happy that he went there. Yeah, I do accept, even in season 1, when she comes in, even though I might be scared of jealous or whatever, or I still recognize her talent. So I think in season 2, I really, I know I have to deal with her talent and just take advantage of it and just, work with her. Basically, it's bridging a gap between generations, cultures, and blah, blah, blah. So, but she is Madame Parfaite, as we say here. She's all too perfect, and she's all too scared. And I did tell Darren in season 1, I thought, she could be a mentor to Emily. She could put her through trials to make her grow. That would be, I'd be like the more mature feminine that puts the younger feminine through trials. And he used that basically, clearly, not really, but a little bit, because there's this whole beginning of season 2 where I'm really like looking at her playing around with her friend and her boyfriend, her love, and I'm like a cat playing with a mouse a little bit. I'm a bit sadistic, and then, and I don't want to tell so much psychology for Emily in Paris. It's like, what? But yeah, I do like her in a way after a while. I even like her awkwardness. I even like the fact that she doesn't know how to dress like a Parisian. I think it's like, I even like the fact she's like, sometimes she's like, what? She's like she's like a, even though she makes me crazy sometimes, she drives me crazy.
Well, it's funny you say she doesn't know how to dress as a Parisian, because there's this whole thing in front of the Louvre and in front of the Mona Lisa. Every young woman is wearing a beret. It's like the and I asked one of the agents, I said, what's with the berets? And he said, well, it's an American series, they're all wearing berets.
Crazy.
Isn't that the wildest thing?
Crazy.
But since we're talking about dress, I have to ask you about the bikini. I don't know how many of you've seen season 2, but for a woman in her 50s and you didn't use a body double, did you? That's really yeah. In America, you'd have a double, right? You wouldn't do it yourself, right? I mean, has anybody ever seen Meryl Streep naked? No. You were out there in a bikini. I mean, tell us about your decision to go out there.
Well, I didn't have a body double. No, it's not my decision. It was Darren. It was Darren, and really, and he did tell me almost at the last minute. But I had some spies that told me before, so I had time to prepare, because we did come out of a lockdown where everybody had chocolate and wine, right? We all had that during lockdown, and so I was like, oh my god. So a lot of workout and diet, obviously, Obviously.
Well, season 2 also talks about the magical leek soup cure,
No, I
which
didn't
is
use that.
yeah. But I once had to write about that lady who wrote the book about it, and every American I knew smelled up her kitchen with making leek
Yeah.
soup. Does it really work?
I don't know. I never used
You
it.
never did
No.
it, so it was just all.
I
Well, you
never
played
used it.
that. You played that role, that part
I
pretty well.
played as if
That's
I
right.
knew
As
everything
if you
about
knew-
the leeks.
It's great.
but No,
It's great. But you know what else is so great is I'm of 100% Italian descent, and there's a whole Italian side to you. I mean, my husband who's here, he was saying, God, she speaks good Italian. I said, well, she grew up in Italy. But
Yeah.
tell us about your upbringing and your formation and your
Well,
Italianness too.
my father's an actor. Well, he doesn't work anymore now. But he lived in Italy. He started living in Italy, I think, 60 years ago. And so when I was born in Paris briefly, and then went to Italy, and I lived there for 11 years until my parents divorced, and my mother came back to Paris with her 2 kids, and I came back to Paris and I hated it, like Emily, really. I thought people were really mean, because Rome is like incredibly soft and round and nice, and people make fun of themselves, and they're great, especially the Romans. I love them. So yeah, Italy's part of my life. It's always been part of my life. I still have part of my family that lives there, so I don't know what to say. I do understand exactly what Emily goes through when she arrives here, because as a teenager, I didn't understand how Parisians were so mean, actually.
So you went through a little bit of that yourself.
Oh yeah, I did. Yeah, I did. It was shocking for me at the beginning. It was like, why are they not smiling? Why are they not making a joke? Why are they not just soft and sweet? Why are they like, and then I became Parisian myself, so I can play Sylvie now, so.
Well, but look at all the different roles that you've had in your life. Okay, you worked you did commercials when you were a teenager to earn a
Yeah.
little bit of money. You had bit parts in films. You've played roles as varied as a single mother in the French version of Three Men and a Baby, which
It was the original version.
the original version, Marat's assassin Charlotte Corday during the French Revolution, a drug addict, a Russian aristocrat, a psychopathic doctor turned police officer, and a Polish Jewish emigre in World War II France.
You do your homework in a way that I can't believe.
Poor Alice had to. Alice read.
You're
read
the
all
one-
of,
you're the
Alice read your whole Instagram account from beginning to end.
Right.
And you also played a small but a very key role in Call My,
My
Agent,
Agent. Mhm.
Depourcent. Tell us a little bit about that role.
Oh, that was there's somebody who likes Depourcent, right?
Yeah, and it was a great
Yeah.
role too, wasn't it? Yeah.
It was so well written. I have to say that it was great. And it was a great idea. Yeah, the idea of having, like a French star in each episode is like fantastic. Yeah, that happened in a moment in my career, whereas every actor that turns my age, I mean, it was earlier, but still after 50, you don't get many roles. And so it was a moment that was a bit like, I'm trying to climb out of a hole where they're trying to put me. And the person who was the director was Cédric Clapiche, was the first director of 10%. And he basically, when he called me and he said, can you come and read for me? And I was like, great. And when he said, I'm hiring you, I called him and I said, you're literally pulling me out of the tomb. And he was like, no, yes, yeah, you are. Thank you so much. So it was really important for me. That was a really important step in my actual happiness as an actor, because also that Darren saw it after we did the reading. It was a moment where, for some reason, everybody was watching 10% in LA. I don't know. There was a trend, and so he saw it at that moment. So it was everything kind of fit together. So it was great. So thank you, 10%. I have to say, the actors are incredible. The writing is really good. So yeah, it's a very high quality show.
So you really did suffer as you went past the 40s in terms of having a harder time getting
Well,
good roles or roles.
we know what the landscape is like. It's like, there's a moment where there are nice roles for women that age, but they're obviously taken right away by the most powerful actresses, which is normal. I mean, I'd do the same if I had that power at that time. So the rest is for us, the ones that didn't have power. So it's like, okay. And sometimes it's a bit boring. There's something about writing for women at that age. They become victims of life. For some reason, it's always like, I was reading a lot of roles about, the poor wife who's so desperate because her kid is doing I don't know what, or a husband and cheating on her, which has also happened in 10%. And it's a bit of a victim. And it took Darren Star to write a role of a woman who's not a victim of her life, which, I'm so grateful.
But even in 10%, in the end, even though she gets cheated on by the husband a couple of times, it was her decision to leave him.
Yeah, but she gets cheated on a lot.
Yeah,
she does react to that. I wish they had written the revenge of Catherine, coming back and saying, okay, you guys now.
You know what? We can have a Sylvie Grateau character
coming back
into 10%.
Right.
Yeah, don't you think?
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. No, but yeah.
Well, you used the word victim, and you've always fought against that being the victimization of women. And you and I have talked a little bit about whether you consider yourself a feminist, and you tell our group here what you said.
Yeah, because when it's very confusing for me what the word means today exactly. I don't know. There's this cultural chaos around that I'm kind of lost. I think nobody should be a victim of anything. I think we should get out of the cultural victimhood. But I obviously love the idea of empowered women. I don't think we should lose any of our feminine in that. I think we should still have a relationship that is beautiful and serene with men. We need them. We need the masculine. We need the feminine. We need all these aspects. And so I'm always confused when we talk about feminism. I don't know exactly what we're talking about. Sometimes I see people wearing that idea of feminism with a very aggressive twist to it that I really don't like. So I position myself really like a French woman, I guess. I don't know, maybe not. I don't know. Yeah, I need the masculine. I really do.
But it's funny because in a way, especially in season 2, the Sylvie character is a feminist because she takes control of her own destiny. She basically cuts a deal with her still legal husband to get some money so that she can, this is a spoiler for you, those of you who haven't seen it, but so she can carry on in life in a new way. And when she is confronted with her husband coming to the door, and she's got her younger lover who's only 39 years old there, and he's and he's Dutch, so he's totally flummoxed by lost. Yeah, very talk about two-dimensional. You tell your lover, well, we've been apart for years. He's here on business. And actually later in the series, your husband tells Emily about the Sylvie character. She was fun and wild. She'd sleep all day and party all night, always had a bikini in her purse, no matter what. It wasn't enough. She wanted a career. So she changed her accent and she moved to Paris. I mean, that's a pretty feminist act. I mean, it really is. You leave the guy behind and, he's got a nice business and he's, not terrible looking. And you say, I'm going to go to Paris and find my destiny.
She went from the hippie on the beach to, Sylvie Grateau. Yeah. But I don't know if it's about being a feminist or just about doing what you want. in life.
But that's
See
the
what I
same
mean?
thing.
I know, but see what I mean? But it's everybody's allowed to do whatever they want in life. Just take your power. Nobody's going to give it to you. That's the same thing for everybody, for men and women. Just take whatever, and then there's moments where you're falling, where you're really fragile, where you just can't do it anymore. But then you go back and fight. And whether you're a man or a woman, it's the same thing. And yeah, but there is something that Darren added. I was thinking about, because I remember something you said. Darren added in that scene, and I really love it, that she doesn't want to get a divorce. She needs that man to be her rock. And that is nice that she's like, okay, let's cut a deal. No, you live apart, blah, blah, blah. But what about divorce papers? Oh, no, it's enough for today. Enough for today. We already did the bar thing, but no. And I love that. I love that, that person stays in her life forever as like such an old friend, such a person that she can really count on. And only man can do that to you. I think it's like these rocks, and it's beautiful.
Did you ever tell Darren, you know what, this just is beyond the pale. This just doesn't work. This is, it's okay for you to have me smoking in the office. It's okay for you to have me wearing these absolutely ridiculous clothes into the office, which you could never wear in an office. I loved the spike, the magenta colored spike, really spike heels that she wore with the bright green shirt as she's on top of her boyfriend in one of the scenes trying to get away from him to get to work. Did you ever just say, Darren, we can't, we can't do this, or why don't you think about this instead of this? No, really?
No, because I like the fact that he's over the top. I like the fact that it's a fantasy. I like the fact that we can dress as if we're at a party all the time. I like the fact that he's exaggerating everything. It's the tone of the series. That's the fun of the show, is the fact that he's totally unrealistic, which the French obviously hated, because it's like, it's not realistic. Paris is not like that. It's not, but it's not like that, yet it is. So it's like, but there was a really funny thing that happened after season 1. When it aired, it was there were memes of Emily. There was that poster of Emily taking selfies, and that was in the metro and everything. So they did memes with Emily taking a selfie in front of all the poubelles in Porte de Bagnolet, or Emily taking a selfie in front of the Gilets jaunes, or Emily taking it was so much fun. And they were going around because they said, it's not realistic, so let's do our own affiche. It's like, it was so cute. But obviously we don't want to film that. We see it all the time. We don't want to film that. And I don't understand why the Parisians weren't happy about how Darren sees the city like a huge candy box. And he's honored Paris in a way, and it is over the top, but I love it. I mean, I think it's, you can watch Emily in Paris and then watch Bergman. Why not? No problem. I just love the grand écart that we have, that we do.
So how did you deal with wearing all those dress up clothes to the office?
Okay, my feet were hurting a lot after 3 months of shooting, but it's part of Sylvie's effort. You said, her husband said, before she was wild, and then she kind of left everything behind and went to Paris because she wanted to become somebody. So I always thought that these heels were like the little pain that she needed, the effort that she needed to make to become that Sylvie Grateau. Because obviously walking on a tense, even though tonight I do have high heels, but thanks to Emily, I'm now used to the high heels. But yeah, no, that was an interesting thing, because my feet were hurting a lot, and it was really interesting for the part. And also I was always like really, really tight things, and it was also very interesting for the part. It gives you that kind of corset. Yeah.
Edge.
Yeah.
And what's Lily Collins like?
Oh, she's adorable.
She is?
Really is. No, she really is adorable. She's a great professional. She's sweet, nice to everybody. When at the end of every season, she bought presents for literally every person on set. So no, she's a really kind person, and incredible to work with. So professional. I mean, I'm learning a lot from her.
And the rest of the team?
They're great. I mean, it's a bunch of, we're all basically living a dream, because we're all like, most of the actors had done very little before. So everybody's living a dream. So it's a lot of fun. It's like, kids in a summer camp, and and I'm the eldest, so I don't go out with them until 4 a.m. They do. And also I like to keep my distances. I like them to be a bit scared of me, not like me too much, because kind of gives us sort of edge every time we're together in the room and we have to work. Yeah, no, it's a lot of fun.
Well, now I have to be a bit scared of Alice and turn the tables and
She's
let
saying
you.
something.
No, she's not, but I know she's thinking it because I know her so well, and I can't monopolize all your time. So I want to open up the questions and comments to people in the audience, and I'm sure we've got lots of people who, yes.
Before
Oh wait, go ahead. Sorry.
I will just say, can we have a big round of applause, please,
No.
for your questions? I just want to acknowledge the international makeup of tonight's Zoom audience. So we have 250 people tuning in from Scotland, the Philippines, Italy, Canada, Germany, the US, Cyprus, Ireland, Brazil, Poland, and Australia. Wow. Very exciting. welcome to Paris. Yes, are there any questions? I'm sure there are. Yes. All the way at the back. Monsieur.
Right. Hi, bonsoir.
Hi.
So my question is not really a question, but how would you feel about Sylvie in Paris instead of Emily in Paris? Because honestly, that's all we want at this
Do
point.
you really want me to do a revolution, like a real revolution?
I would. Honestly, that's all I want.
Well, she shouldn't be in Paris. She should be somewhere else, like in Tokyo.
Okay. Yes. Ooh.
I want Sylvie in Paris too. Well, you said earlier you can watch Emily in Paris and then Birdman. I want Birdman / Sylvie in Paris. I want drama. I mean, it would really work and be a hit. I want Sylvie in Paris. We need maybe more parallels about the true way of living in France. We want Emily on la ligne 13. We want Emily gets la sécurité sociale, maybe, or something like, maybe, I don't know, maybe someone gets cancer and doesn't have to buy or sell their house. I don't know. It would be like very funny, or something. They don't have to run after the ambulance. Oh no, they can just take them. Oh, amazing. So
okay, I'll
Yes.
tell Darren about the sécurité
Yeah.
sociale. I will, because that's a good idea. Say, okay, now that we have our agency, because
Or
she
maybe
might
that-
come with me, I
maybe-
don't know, but if she does,
Yeah.
now you have to get your sécurité sociale and have her queue up at the
Yeah,
Assurance maladie.
and your carte de séjour
and your carte de séjour and the
the
whole
prefecture.
show.
Yes. Right. Right.
Philippine, we have a question from the room downstairs, fielding questions from every part of the library. How did you learn your excellent English? Signed from an English teacher who's very impressed. And we had a few of these on Zoom as well.
Oh my God. English, is it English? No, I think it's kind of mid-Atlantic. It's a weird kind of, right? I went to school, in an American school, and when I was a kid, my best friend, who's right here in the audience, the first row, was American. So I learned English in her house, basically.
And has being on the show helped?
Sorry?
Has being on the show helped?
Of course.
Yeah. Okay, we had a question on Zoom. I wrote this down. This is from Lauren, who asked, how do you explain the success of Emily in Paris among American audiences?
I guess it's very difficult for me. No, I guess it's Paris. I guess it's a dream. I think Paris has always been like this kind of fantasy for the world, I guess, and Americans a lot. I think you guys like Paris, don't you? I think so. Yeah. So I think it's that, and it's this fantasy, the fact that it's not realistic. You know.
I have another question on Zoom. Dornia wants to know, where did you get your inspiration for the walk that Sylvie does?
The shoes, the shoes. It's the heels. It's the heels that make me find that walk.
No, but tell the story about your mother, how your mother used to walk too, with her arms a certain way.
Yeah, what happened is season 1, I was trying to channel my mom, and my mom had her arms like that a lot. She used to smoke like that, you know, like she was a chain smoker too, like So yeah, so she came in.
We have a question.
Hi, I love you and 10%.
Oh,
So-
thank you.
I had a
Thank you.
French teacher who told me that Americans and Hollywood are always about the happy ending, but French movies are not. So I'm curious, as an actress who's straddled both environments, do you agree that French movies are less about the happy ending and Americans are? And if so, why do you think that is?
It's true. And I think because the Americans are wonderfully optimistic and the French are not. That's the only answer I can find. And I think I'm not far from truth.
Hi, good evening. I was wondering, how do your friends and family feel about your portrayal of Sylvie in the show?
Oh, they're very supportive. Yeah, they're supportive. No, they like it. They like it. Yeah. My daughter loves it. She's so happy that I'm in this kind of show, non-realistic, optimistic, and she just loves it. 30. Yeah. And she's an artist. She's very intellectual. She loves Bergman, but she loves Emily in Paris.
Hello. Thank you so much for being here. You touched on this a little bit. The show obviously got very polarized reactions. I loved it as an American, but there were Americans here who were on their high horse, yada, yada. So I'm curious, how did you and the rest of the cast and crew deal with that? Was it easy? Did you laugh it off, or was it more of a process?
Well, I was left with the task to deal with the French because they weren't here during neither promotions, you know, so season 1 or season 2. So I was like left with that task. And what I laughed it off, obviously. And even though, you know, they had told us to really like leave it to the authors, they're going to explain everything. I don't think there's much to explain except that maybe sometimes you can hate it or love it, whatever. And it's such an extreme show. Obviously, the point of view is so strong that you're obviously going to find people that are going to not like it. And, you know, why not? And who cares? I mean, in the sense that you don't have to watch it, and I'm not offended, and, you know, everything's fine. You know, it's like tastes, different tastes. So I don't think we have to justify anything about the show. I mean, it is what it is. It's clearly a fantasy.
Are there more questions in this area before I head back? Okay, yes.
Thank you, first of all. And as an American in Paris who's also worked in fashion, I am especially interested in this simple question. How do you, as a beautiful French woman, dress? I mean, what do you think about when you're shopping? Did your mother teach you? I think that a lot of us would love to know the answer to this question.
Oh my God. Okay, so my mother worked in fashion. I was very bored with clothes when I was a teenager, obviously, because my mother was working in fashion. She did teach me how to spot beautiful stuff. So when I got older and more reasonable, I realized it was a chance to have had a mother like her. But I kind of keep it simple in my day-to-day life and comfortable. Unlike Sylvie, I don't like to be corseted so yeah, what do I think about when I shop? I guess like everybody, something that makes you look good and which you feel happy, you know. I don't have des idées préconçues, about that. But I also like to be surprised. Sometimes I really like to go over the top, and not keep it simple at all. But that's for, events.
We have another question from the room downstairs. This anonymous person says, "Thank you for speaking here tonight. Are you a reader? And if so, what are some of your favorite books?"
Okay, so yeah, I was thinking about what I've been reading lately. I reread a book by Ram Dass called Carnet de Pèlerinage. So it's basically a story about initiatique. How do you say that?
Like pilgrimage.
Huh?
A pilgrimage?
Yeah, it's about initiations. Anyway, it's an Indian story, obviously. Then I just bought Richard Powers' L'Arbre Monde, and I'm very excited to read that. That's going to be my next book. I was rereading last autumn Cent Ans de Solitude, because I read it when I was like 17. I remember being so overwhelmed by that book, and then I thought, okay, I'm going to read it again, see if it, still has that, and it does. It's incredible.
100 Years of Solitude. Yeah.
100 Years of Solitude. Yeah, because everything chaotic. That would be the perfect book to read. What else? I was rereading also Christiane Singer, Les Chevaux écumants du passé, all these. She's an incredible writer also. She writes a lot about the heart and the soul, and I'm always very interested with these things.
Well, you have this spiritual side to yourself too, your love of India and Eastern philosophy, and also South America. Yes. So why don't you tell us a little bit about those sources of inspiration?
Well, I guess it's well, South America is more like the relationship with the Mother Nature, and I would say the spirits of Mother Nature. The fact that I went to Brazil a lot, and the way they have their feet planted in the soil and really their head in the stars, and they're really like a medium between these two worlds, and they're really like super grounded yet super in touch with something that's bigger than us. And that was really a like a revelation for me when I went there. I went there when my daughter was like 6 months old, and I brought her there, and it was like years ago. Nobody went to Brazil at that time. Everybody thought I was crazy because I was traveling my daughter, and it was great. It was great, and I went back and forth a lot. And then India, India is a weird place. The more you know it, the less you know it. The more you go, the less you know it. It's like so different. So you kind of read, try to understand, and then there's thing about frugality. I remember this person in Dharamsala, where the Dalai Lama lives, telling me, he said, "You guys in the West love to admire people that are on covers of magazines, and we admire people that go and retreat in the mountain for 10 years in a cave." And I thought, yeah, they're so right, actually. Yeah, they're really like into a very different thing, but it's very complementary.
I have a question back here.
Bonsoir. Okay. How do you balance tradition and modernity, and especially American entertainment as an actress in 2022?
What a question. You're an intellectual, right? No, I mean, I don't know. I guess I don't know how to answer that, because I'm old enough to have a history with tradition, obviously, because I also lived in two countries like Italy and France that have like a really strong history, and I carry that with me. It's my identity too. It's part of who I am. And then but it's a good question actually, because it's true that then you throw yourself into these modern shows where some people don't have that kind of background that I have, and you try to bring whatever you have inside, whatever you are, to it. I'm never gonna me conform myself to the I'm not very conformiste, but also I don't like to conform myself to the place I'm in, like a show like that. I try to bring something that is mine. Sometimes it's not understood, sometimes it is. And I'm talking about Darren because this is obviously very clear with him, that he has this capacity of seeing who everybody is. He's very good at casting. Well, with Juliette, both of them. And so he really sees who everybody is, and has this very big talent of writing for the person as he feels the person is. And he has an incredible eye.
We have a question from downstairs, and it kind of touches on questions we're getting on Zoom. Philippine, this person writes, we couldn't get enough of Sylvie. Do you know when you'll be back on set with the crew for season 3? And also, what are your future projects?
I'll be back on set. We'll all be back on set in June. Shooting all through the summer. And for the moment, that's my only project.
Okay, another question downstairs. How do you see the future? You kind of touched on this, but maybe you could elaborate. How do you see the future of the French-American movie cooperation?
That's a question for a producer. Not yet. I'm not producer yet. What was really, I'm going to try to answer this, but what was really interesting is that when the American crew from Emily in Paris came here, I mean, I'm talking about the producers, directors, when they came to Paris, they weren't sure we were able, the technicians were able to please them. And they actually told me, I mean, one of the directors, producers, who's adorable, he said, I didn't know the French were so good at this, it's like, we did invent cinema. And he's like, but nothing, just so I guess, once the Americans accept that other people can do stuff as well as them, a cooperation is possible. But no, I think I don't know, people are happy to come in and shoot here, which is great. In France, that's great. A lot of Americans are shooting here, a lot of American productions. So we're very happy. And we know how to work.
Even on weekends.
Even on weekends. Yes. That's a weird story. It's like you're not allowed to go.
That there's this thing in Emily in Paris, and especially in season 2, where you're not allowed to work on weekends. And I mean, that didn't strike you as kind of odd that you should say to Darren Star, excuse me, but really that's over the top. That's over the top cliche.
So to go back to your question, maybe I should have.
Wait, there's still season 3. There's time, right? Because if Sylvie's going to run her own agency, she's going to have to run everybody into the ground.
She's going to work on Sundays.
Yeah, right.
All questions? Yes.
Thank you. So I was wondering, from an acting point of view, how do you approach playing such a stereotypical character without being offensive or disingenuous?
I don't even think about that. I don't think about who's offended or not. That's who I am. I'm a bit of a bitch like Sylvie. I don't care. I try to be myself. No, I think my mother was so, there's a beautiful word in French. I don't know if it helped me, Elaine. Irreverente. My mother was so irreverent, and that's one of the things that I really cherished about her a lot. And I did put that into Sylvie. I tried to, really have that quality. For me, it's a quality, even though can be offensive. But if you're offended, it's your problem. It's not mine.
If I could just add something, when Alice and I had to do the first story on Emily in Paris, before it had even been aired in France, we had to show it to various people all over Paris, and it was during COVID, so we couldn't have people over in one viewing. And so we had to take it over and over and over again. And the word that a lot of people used over and over was ridicule. But it was, some people said it in a nice way, in the kind of Molière sense of so over the top stereotypes that it's ridicule, and it makes it funny.
Yeah, I think the caricature, or that was the word that came out a lot I think it's a wonderful space for an actor, because he can work around that, and also it's something that everybody can relate to. When you have like a stereotype, let's say somebody that lives in Ecuador, or because this show goes everywhere, so people have to think about you live in Paris, and most of the people that criticize the show live in Paris, or whereas somebody that comes from Japan has never traveled, somebody that lives in Laos, somebody that lives in Russia that's never come here, for them they're not stereotypes, it's not a caricature, they're like, wow. And it's a very simple way to give people the color of what is going on here. And we as actors, our job is to make it palatable. Is that a right word? Yeah, great. Just not to, so that it's not too, so sometimes we can do it, sometimes we just fail, but but it's I kind of like the idea of having I work with Colline Serrault, who did Three Men and a Cradle, and she always said something about actors that was like, I like actors that really act it out, that kind of go for it, and I was whereas in France we're always very naturalistic, so yeah, kind of so I kind of remember this lesson. It's like, just sometimes just go over the top, who cares, just yeah.
It's your Italian side, the person who would jump into the
La
Trevi
commedia
fountain.
dell'arte.
Yeah,
Yes,
exactly.
yes.
We have time for one more question. I go to you, monsieur.
Thank you for such a nice evening. D'abord, c'est hallucinant que vous aviez 57 ans. Incroyable, bravo.
58 maintenant.
58, j'ai 59. Je comprends. Bravo. What do you, having experience in the United States, and obviously with an American crew, what do you think are the main distinctions between French women and American women, beyond optimism? In terms of confidence, in terms of being coquettish or not? What's your general personal experience? Or is there a difference?
Yes, there is difference, but I don't know how to explain that. We are in Europe, I'd say. It's not only France. There's more, women are more into a sort of tradition. They're more, you can feel the weight of a tradition here, even in women, where you don't really feel that in American women. You feel that they're more, they have this pioneer spirit like the man that here in France we don't have. And so it takes more effort to free ourselves from some stereotypes and blah, 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 and things than it does for American women. I feel that they have, but I wouldn't say only women, I'd say people. There's this thing about being a pioneer, having a lot more respect for everybody's individuality, which is something that also Europe has to work on. Yeah, it makes sort of freer people in a way. That's what it's not only women, it's both men and women.
Thank you. Can we have a big final round of applause?
Thank
please?
you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you to Elaine. Thank you, Philippine, for being here.